All right, today I am joined by Faina Shapiro. Listen, we're going to be going through a number of different things. Think about this. If you were going to start in real estate and you started right before the pandemic hit, you'd probably be thinking maybe this is the time you're going to struggle that first year. That's not the case. There were certain things that Faina did this year that have taken her business to a really high level, and now it's the momentum that's really carrying her to the next level. Let's get to it. All right, everybody. Today I am joined by Faina Shapiro, and she is with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Page Realty out of Medway, Massachusetts. Faina, I really appreciate you reaching out to me because as we've gotten to talk a little bit, your story is so inspiring from a standpoint that I think there's a lot of people who will be able to relate to this. If you don't mind, let's take it back to what really got you thinking about going into real estate. How did this process start at a young age? And how did you find yourself then in real estate this last year?
I went to Mass College of Pharmacy, so I was not a real estate major or, anything like that. However, I did take the courses about 10 years ago as a landlord. I think it's really important, whether you're a real estate agent or not, that you are familiar with local real estate laws. I think that's just the best way to protect yourself. So I did take the courses early on, but basically from my background, I really value the importance of research and education. I think that is what honestly helped me to be successful my first year, because I never allowed people to say, well, how long have you been in the industry? Because after, even 10 minutes of talking to me, I think they understand I really do know what I'm talking about. And that is really important in this industry is, you can't assume people are going to work with you because it is such a competitive field. So if you want to be successful, you want to beat your competition, you have to improve yourself, be educated, and stay motivated.
I completely agree. This is something that people they forget. I mean, in reality, you don't get nervous about people asking you questions if you feel like you're at a place where you have enough information to answer them. And that kind of overcomes a lot of that. So let's go back. You started in the business. You were a stay-at-home mom, decided you wanted to go into real estate. You get your license. When did you get your license? And was it right before the pandemic hit last year or a couple months?
Couple months before the pandemic hit. So I had a few months of the experience of a normal real life situation as a realtor. But basically the rest of the year, everything was flipped upside down. But I do really value the first 2 months. They were very important and really helped set the way for my year, I think. So the first 2 months, I really took it upon myself to volunteer myself for any open house situation I can get in the office. So that was literally how I got my first 2 clients. And for my first 2 clients, so for one of my clients I met at an open house, they gave me 2 other referrals last year. Another one that I'm working on right now that I also have a deal accepted on. So open house. That's really essential, especially as a new time agent. I know it's a lot harder with COVID because, people nowadays, people come in with an agent, so it's a little bit more difficult, but it's, now with the vaccine, things are getting easier, more people feel more at ease to come in. So take that opportunity, volunteer your time, do it for free. I mean, I did a lot of things for free where most people are like, oh, why are you doing that for free? It's so much work. But it pays off because the important thing is it's not about, getting paid for something. It's about the education and the learning experience from all these things that you're doing. And the best way to learn is to do, right? So that's why do as many open house and shadow as many agents that you respect in the office. Basically do whatever it takes to learn.
Faina, this is a really good point because as you and I talked really before we even came on, you talked about the fact that you kind of started without any sphere of influence. And a lot of people, that's the biggest excuse I hear from new agents or agents that are at a plateau in their business. They're like, well, all these other people are building it with their sphere of influence and I don't have that. So let's talk about that. Literally, I think it's almost like it was the best situation for you because you had a couple months of normalcy. But then when all the other agents that didn't know how to adapt, or all they knew was the previous way, and it was harder for them to maybe make an adaptation to what was happening. Tell me what you did. And if you don't mind, before you do that, let's talk about your first year's production, first full years in production. If you don't mind, let everybody know what that is so they can get an idea of what this looked like for you in that first year. And then if you will, talk about how you did those things. What were the marketing things you did on top of open houses or that you switched into?
So my first year, I had 16 sales. I got an award at work. I was top 8% in my office, so I'm really proud of that. I had exceeded my goals by almost double what I thought I was hoping to make my first year, because, I know most people, their first year is very difficult, especially during COVID. So I'm really proud of that because, like you mentioned, it wasn't a sale that was given to me or a listing that was given to me. I had to work really hard for all my sales. It was not from family or friends initially. In fact, my first listing was from a friend. However, I had to really work for it. And she initially told me she was going to go with another agent. In fact, I basically begged and pleaded and was like, okay, I know you're going with another agent because that other agent had 20 plus years of experience. And I finally convinced her because I do have a staging background. So I was staging for a few years prior to becoming a realtor for some of the top local agents in my area. So I basically convinced her to at least come to her house and give her some free staging. So, normally I would consult and get a couple $100 an hour. And I was like, I'll do it for free, no obligation, just, so she finally agreed. And while I was in there, I pitched her my sales pitch. And within a few days, she called me back and she was like, oh my God, my husband and I were blown away from you. You taught us more. And I spent 2 hours there, and they were like, you're hired, basically. I didn't have to decrease my commission or anything like that to get it. In fact, I did offer it at a certain point and they were like, absolutely not. You deserve every penny of it. I actually beat a record in my office with 29 offers on that house. And that was in the right beginning of COVID. So, it's, to some extent that was a sphere of influence, but she totally flat out told me no, right? And I continued to beg and plead and got my way in. And she actually helped to get me 7 sales last year, including 2 additional listings. So it was really worth it. And in fact, she expressed there was another agent that was local and, they wouldn't work with her or return some of her calls because it was a lower end listing, a little under 300,000. Well, for me, I was super grateful for the opportunity. And so I think the message I'm trying to, share with everybody is even if you get no's, you have to figure out a way to turn them into yes and keep trying. The worst that happens is eventually they do say no, but best case scenario is maybe they say yes, and it's worth it to keep trying with that situation, right? But another thing I did is, so I actually teach for local community education programs throughout Massachusetts. And so I started off teaching for those programs in regards to organization, property maintenance, and renovation classes. And so as I transitioned into also becoming a realtor, and with COVID, I took that opportunity and I asked them if I could teach real estate classes as well. And, it's actually really hard as a realtor to do that because we kind of have sometimes a bad reputation in real estate where if we do things like that, it can come off as a sales pitch. Actually, one of them I spent a few hours basically convincing her that wasn't my goal. And that really wasn't. I really was trying to do these classes for educational purposes. And I think people see that and that's why they value the classes. However, this year too. So I used my initial classes to get more classes for real estate, and those helped to give me leads. And the best thing about those classes is that it's free marketing for me. So I can show you. Yeah, so I now teach investor real estate classes, home buying, home selling workshops. And the best thing is all these programs actually, they not only advertise online, but they advertise in every single home in the community. So every single home, and I teach in over 7 communities throughout Massachusetts. And a lot of them also go into other communities too. So every single house gets this advertisement, right? And for example, I have a whole page basically devoted to me. There's 3 of my classes on this page, right? And everyone gets my bio in the back. So this is throughout Massachusetts communities. It's free advertising. I don't pay for it, right? And it's just a great way. So I landed my first $1 million listing from a seller's workshop that I taught last month. So it's kind of great because I didn't pay for that lead. In fact, a lot of these community education programs actually do pay the teachers. This year, I took it upon myself to tell all the programs that I wasn't going to take payment. I wanted all the proceeds to be donated back to the community because, you know, all these schools are struggling this year. So it's a great way for me to give back. It's a great way for me to meet people I otherwise wouldn't meet. And I do them all on Zoom now. So it's honestly convenient to me, aside from making my kids in the background have to be quiet during the evening. I make it work. So it's a great opportunity. So that's, you know, one of the ways that I've been able to get leads. I'm on the board of assessors in my town too. I don't get leads from that, but it gives me an added level of education and, you know-how. So when my buyers and my sellers work with me, I bring a next level of, you know, information to them. And I think that brings value. And I actually really enjoy it because, again, it's another volunteer opportunity in my community. So that's another way that I've been able to kind of, again, I think the most important thing when it comes to real estate is you want to do what's best for your clients. And I think the way to really do that is to make yourself be the best realtor. So constantly educating yourself, going above and beyond expectations, you know, providing true value to the people that you work for, answering the calls, you know. So I have tenants, so I'm used to calls at any point. I welcome them. I want my tenants to, you know, if there's an issue, call me so I can address it. And that's how I treat my clients. And I think that shows in what I do. And that's why I continue to get referrals. I already have 16 reviews on Zillow, you know, things like that. So as long as you continue to do what's right, I think you'll be able to be successful in this industry.
You brought up so many good points that I want to kind of reflect back on, because I think some people can get overwhelmed by this. The biggest one that I would take away is that your first client, because of the way you took care of them, you know, some people, they talk about this and they say, oh, well, I just have this one, but one's better than none, as we've talked about. And what I would say is that one person has led you to 7 additional sales, 2 additional listings. It's because of you taking the time and not just be worried about getting 10, but just taking care of the one that's right in front of you is so critically important. You mentioned these community classes also. I have to tell you, when I first started, I did the same thing. I did it where I did first-time home buyer, and I would bring in and just find someone that did credit repair, find a lender that would help me sponsor this. Right now, whether you do it through Zoom or on local areas, we're seeing these still do very, very well, especially when you can get targeted email list or targeted list of renters right now where they can buy at a place where their payment is going to be less on their mortgage, is going to be less than what they're paying in rent. So that you bring up a great point, and I would encourage people that are looking at that. There's so many different ways to do that. And then the last thing on the community service, I have to tell you, when I first started, I did the very same thing. I was on our local planning commission for the city that I was selling in. It gave me the opportunity to be there, to learn what was coming, to understand what was going on, and to, like you said, give me a little bit more of a sense of ability to serve people in a better way, to know what was happening, to do those things. And I think when you come from a place of service to others, you can't fake that. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not hard when you hear you talk about your clients and about doing your classes, that your focus is on helping people, and ultimately that just comes around in spades. Let's talk in closing. I'd love to just kind of go through one other thing. Tell me what you wish you would have known when you first started, that would have helped you, you think? What do you think you would have done more of if you had known what you know now?
Well, I think people underestimate how much hustle there is involved in real estate. Right. So one way I go and beat that hustle, is just like I said, by being educated. I think that gives me the edge. But you always have to think outside the box. So, for example, we all know how hard it is to get offers accepted for buyers, right? But a few months back, I was buyer agent of the month in my office, which is a big deal because, again, I'm a new agent and I work with some heavy hitters in my industry. But I did it by thinking outside the box. So I got several off listing sales for my buyers. I do not recommend going over, like, I have serious conversations about value in a home. So it's not because, I say go over 50, 60,000 just to get a deal secured. I take that really seriously, and I make sure we have those conversations with my buyers. But I'm really proud of it because, again, it's thinking outside the box, and you always have to be on your toes. And I think I have an advantage as somebody who buys regularly myself, is that I always put myself in the mindset of the buyer, right, and their shoes. And I think that helps me not only to relate to them, but to really make sure, not that I baby them, but I really kind of go about the process as if I were in their situation, and how would I like to learn and go through the process. And as well as educating myself, educating the buyer and the seller too. But basically, the biggest thing I learned too is a lot of hustle. You really have to think outside the box, because if you continue to do what everyone else is doing, you're never going to stand out. And you really do need to stand out in this industry, I think, to be successful. That's why I just got my real estate license in Rhode Island too, is to expand my education, my knowledge, and to help people get offers accepted in other growing communities. So again, it's just, follow, have mentors, but also, try to be your own self, be educated, and think outside the box.
So listen, in your first year, to be able to creatively, in a very competitive environment, get your buyers' offers accepted, when I would assume in some of these situations, they were multiple offers. What were some specific strategies you used to make your buyers' offers stand out from all the rest?
Something that I use is that when I initially meet my buyers, I have conversations with them to understand the whole process from the beginning. And I tell them the importance of, if they meet a listing agent, kind of be on your best behavior, and be mindful, because, one thing as a listing agent myself is I know that when you meet the listing agent, there's multiple offers, and the seller will ask, well, who stood out to you? Who did you like? They're going to think about that first appearance and that situation. So that's step one, where I always ensure we have a conversation when we meet with my buyers, to understand that they are watching you, and that it's important to kind of make a good first impression. And also, I take it upon myself to be very easy to work with, be very responsive to the listing agent, ask the right questions. So I know that when we put in an offer, the listing agent knows that, I have great buyers because I've made an effort to express that. And more importantly, that we won't back out or have buyer's remorse or anything like that, right? Especially in this market where you have like 5 minutes to make a decision. I think listing agents really appreciate that kind of behavior, right? And the other thing is, I do use the escalation clause. That has been helpful, where we have saved money because, my buyers are willing to go up to a certain point, and they didn't need to because the other offers were lower. So they were really grateful for that, and that's not used as often. I do not like telling my buyers to waive inspection. So we haven't done that. We have waived certain amounts because I think that all buyers should do a home inspection. I think that's the best way to protect your investment, your asset, and honestly, there'll be other homes if you're not allowed to do that. And potentially, if you buy a home and there's that loss, you can't sometimes recover from that. And at the end of the day, no one's ever regretted that we've done that, so it's good. But basically, escalation, be on your best behavior with the listing agent, be very responsive if there's questions. I always have my lender actually reach out to the listing agent and to show that my buyers are really well qualified, because that's super important in this industry, because a lot of these sellers are selling in order to be able to buy their future home. So they need that solid buyer. So, having the lender and confirm that there will be no issues always helps, because sometimes it's really not about the highest price. It's about having that solid buyer so the seller can move forward in the way that they need to on their next home purchase. So those are kind of the important things. And setting expectations again for home inspections. I do always put in must appraise for the amount of purchase. I don't take that out. So it's buyer agent of the month, but it wasn't because I was, not having my buyers do the right things for themselves to protect themselves. We never waived any of those things. So I think it's really important that there's other ways to go around it and really ensure that your buyers are getting a great deal, but also that they're protecting themselves.
So good. Faina, I can't thank you enough. I know people got something out of this. I would encourage you guys, if you got something out of this, reach out and let Faina know. And also, if someone has a referral for you, or if they wanted to reach out to you, what's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
Am I allowed to give my phone number? I don't even know.
Please.
Yes. Okay. You can call, text me anytime. I always try to answer within 10 minutes. If I don't, there's something wrong with me. But feel free to call or text me anytime at 617-820-0600, or you can email me as well at Faina, Faina, at BHHS Page, PAGE, Realty.com.
So good. All right, guys, make sure you reach out to Faina, let her know how much you appreciate this, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.